This is the history of Mexico economic development since independence. Mexico achieved independence in 1810. After achieving independence, the country was left with high stagnation where the production of goods and services in the economy slowed down or even declined until the end of the 1800s. The persistence of stagnation was due to the high risk of foreign invasion and political instability that deterred innovation and kept citizens from engaging in new business ventures in addition to scaring off foreign investment from entering the country. Furthermore, when independence happened, many wealthy individuals left the country and took their capital with them. The wealthy citizens that stayed behind converted their investments into intangible assets that were often unproductive such as property, and this maintained a stagnant environment. A period of important development in the country happened in the 1800s under the restored republic political era in which the attraction of foreign capital became more prominent to finance Mexico economic development. During this period revision of tax laws and tariffs were undertaken, as well as a revitalization of the mining industry. There was also the development of transportation and communication which allowed the country to better use its resources. One important development that happened was the construction of new rail lines toward the United States which expanded the commercialization that was vital for major cities to develop. As the country entered the 1900s, it was marked by a revolution that disrupted the economy and the economic gains achieved since independence. During the revolution many citizens died which shrunk the labor market in addition to the disturbance that reduced the production of many agricultural products, mining, and livestock. The biggest disruption during this period was the halt of the credit system and the depreciation of the Mexican peso. The halt of the credit system meant that many citizens could not obtain the funds needed to finance their business operation or launch new business ventures which halted economic development in the country. As the country entered the 1930s, the Great Depression in the United States had a small effect on the economy compared to other countries around the world. The country did experience a drop in national income, but sectors like manufacturing and others that served the domestic economy were not heavily affected. The uncertainty during this period did bring new important development in terms of reforms such as the railroad nationalization, petroleum nationalization and the acceleration of land reform to grow the domestic economy. The effects from these reforms led to an increase in agricultural production, expansion of employment and tax reduction that incentivized domestic demand. By the late 1960s, the economy was growing at about 7% annually with inflation relatively low at 3%. To maintain the domestic economic growth, tariffs and other import barriers were adopted. When the country entered the 1970s, the government began to promote industrial expansion through investments in agriculture, energy, and transportation infrastructure. The results led cities to develop rather quickly and led to an increase in population which helped replace the labor force that died during the revolution. This shift to manufacturing attracted foreign investments that had once left the country which helped to diversify and strengthen the economy. By the 1970s, oil wells were discovered which led the country to move toward petroleum production and petroleum-related products. The economic growth from petroleum was significant that it allowed the country to obtain the funds needed to expand industries such as energy, transportation, and basic industries. In 1973, an oil shock in combination with land dispute accelerated inflation in the country which gave rise to capital flight, and this forced the country to move away from a fixed exchange rate. While the developments from the 1970s to the 1990s were taking place, a bubble formed due to unsustainable capital inflow, growth and raising debt. At its peak Mexico's debt will reach up to 65% of GDP with 26% of the debt denominated in foreign capital. This left Mexico in a similar situation compared to other Latin America economies where a pull of foreign capital could destabilize the economy. The country had made the mistake of using large levels of foreign capital to finance development. When the crisis began to develop, the current account dropped to a 6% of deficit and the weakening of the economy created an unsustainable environment. A current account deficit of 6% should be interpreted as expenses being 6% more than what's earned in 1 year. During the 1980s, the whole Latin America continent was engulfed in a debt crisis in addition to a drop in oil prices which had come to represent a significant share of the Mexican economy. This led to a drop in demand for many Mexican products. As economy began to worsen, capital flight began to take place which accelerated inflation in the country and led to an inflation level of up to 151%. The central bank did what other economies had done in those times by engaging in buying the currency in the open market until it could no longer support such initiatives. As the country entered the 1990s, the economy shifted with the biggest sectors in the economy becoming commerce, services, transportation, communication, agriculture, forestry, fishing, construction, mining, electricity, and gas, which pointed to a well-diversified economy. Then in 1994 the country suffered another economic crisis with the collapse of the peso, but by 1996 the country began to emerge from the recession.